So in the last video, we took a look at how to create external style sheet and how to create internal CSS. The last way to insert a style sheet is by using inline CSS. So let's take a look at that method. Alright, so an inline style may be used to apply a unique style for a single element. So if you wanted to, use a style just for that one element on that one page to overwrite the other global styles, then inline CSS is a good way to do this. Okay, but you don't want to use inline CSS if you're going to use it in multiple places, only to overwrite this one thing for this one particular instance. Okay, so to use inline styles, you add the style attribute to the relevant element. So the style attribute can contain any CSS property, and we'll learn about properties later on. Right now, the color property, this is a property color, and this is a value, red. Okay, so the color is for the font color. So here, if we look at this paragraph, okay, so in this p tag, you have an attribute, a style attribute, style equals, and the property is color and the value is red. Now you can have more than one property and value after the semicolon. So even if there's only one here, you still have to add a semicolon. You must always have a semicolon. Anyway, so that's in the start p tag. You enter that attribute. All right, so let's take a look at an example of this and show here. So I went to my themes, and I went in here in the p tag to enter this style equals color red. So let me do it again. So style is the attribute, okay, and the CSS rule is the property color colon and the value is red. And to end this, I have to put a semicolon, and all this is within the quotation marks. So I'm gonna go save it, and then I'm gonna go and view it. Oh, excuse me. And here we have our paragraph is now in red. Okay, so let's go back to our PowerPoint here. All right, so you can have multiple style sheets if some properties have been defined for the same selector, meaning the same element in different style sheets. So maybe there's been different styles declared for p tags in different style sheets, so in the external one and so on. So the value from the last red style sheet will be used. Okay, so what does this mean? If the internal style sheet is defined after the link to the external style sheet, the h1 elements will be orange. Okay, so here's my link to my style. So if in that style sheet, the external style sheet, my h1 is supposed to be blue, but then in my style that I put in after that link, I say orange, then my h1 will be orange, not blue. Okay, it will overwrite whatever is before. Okay, so therefore that's why CSS is called CSS, cascading style sheet. That's what cascading means. What style would be used when there is more than one style specified for an HTML element? All the styles on the page will cascade into a virtual style following by the following rules, where number one has the highest priority. So inline style inside the HTML element, like the when you put it inside the p tag, for example, that will have the number one highest property. So if in the h1 tag I put style equals that style attribute, style equals color purple, then the h1 will be purple, not orange or blue. That will overwrite everything before that. So the external and internal style sheets in the head section, in the head tag, will be overwritten by inline style. The external and internal style sheets will overwrite the browser default. So we all know that the browser has some default styles that it applies to it. That would be overwritten by any style sheet, such as internal or external. So an inline style has really the highest priority and will overwrite any external or internal styles or browser defaults. Okay, So the first thing we're going to learn when creating an external style sheet is setting the encoding of the style sheet to Unicode UTF-8. So this must be the first, this previous. So this here, the character set rule will be the first line in your CSS, in any CSS document. It must be the first element and not to be preceded by any character. You cannot put anything before it, nothing. This must be the first thing on your CSS document. So if several character set rules are defined, only the first one will be read. It cannot be used inside of a style attribute. So for example, in the p tag where I entered the style attribute, you cannot put it in there. Okay. So let's take a look at how the CSS syntax works. Okay, syntax is kind of like the rules of how something works. The CSS rule consists of a selector and a declaration block. So this is a selector. The H1 is a selector, the element, right, that we're declaring a style for. This is the selector. Oops, where's my laser pointer? This is a selector here. Then it's followed by a declaration block, or the CSS rule. Okay, this is a selector, the element, H1, and this is, okay, this is what you should look like, the declaration, the CSS rule. The selector points to the HTML element that you want to style, right? You want to style H1. The declaration block contains one or more declarations, so it could be just one or it could be many. And each declaration, so we have one declaration here, color blue, that's one. Then we have a semicolon, meaning that declaration is ended. Now this is a different one. So there's two declarations, the color, font color, and then also the font size. Okay, so two declarations there. So each declaration includes a CSS property. This is the property. The color is a property. And a value. So what is it going to be? This is the property, the color. What is the value? Blue. Or it could be red or orange. Okay, this is another kind of property. Font size, that's a property. What is the value? 12 pixels, 10 pixels, 11 pixels. So that's the value. So multiple CSS declarations are separated by semicolons. And all the declarations after the selector here, all the declarations, doesn't matter how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, has to be inside of these curly brackets. Okay? So this is an example. So this is what it would look like. This is your selector or your element here. Curly brackets, open curly brackets, and then end curly brackets. And inside of the curly brackets, all your CSS rules or your declarations. Might be one or might be more. This is one line of declaration, two line of declarations. The first declaration has a property, the color, and then a value. Okay, the second one has a property, which is font size, and then a value, 10 pixels. Okay, and make sure that it's each separated by semicolons. All right, so that is the end of this PowerPoint, but let's hop over to your Atom and let's go create our first CSS style sheet. So I'm going to go File, New File, and make sure that you add the character sets, which I have for you here. Okay, so let's go copy that and place it in here. And there you go, File, Save. And now save it as style.css. Okay, and let's enter our first declaration. So paragraph, that's our selector. Okay. Oops. And then curly bracket and the color, meaning the font color, will be blue. Okay, so let's go save that. File, save. So this will be applied to any page that is linked to this CSS style sheet. Okay, so if you now go look at, let's say, menu. Okay, menu is linked to that CSS style sheet, so let's go take a look at it. Oh, it didn't work, but let's go see why it didn't work.